Hi, my name is S.KANG. I'm a cinematographer. I'm also the principal engineer of a lighting company for the film business called Aperture. It was hard to find a TV that represented the typical home, but still be close to the standard of what we, needed. OLED technology was around for a long time. But when LG introduced OLED TVs that catered to our market, doing filmmaker mode, doing calibration, that giving us the ability to calibrate it to make it correct, to match the standard, allowed more people to trust it. So when I first encountered it, I was helping advise post-production facilities where people make movies and finish them so that you can prepare the color and contrast and everything for delivery. They need to watch it on a TV that they could trust, and the first TV that we were starting to find was LG, and it performed very well. And so I've been familiar with LG OLED for a long time. So cinematographers, our job is to author the image, not just on set, but at the end, we are the final, what we call the gatekeeper of the image. We make sure that it is as good as it could be for display and for exhibition. I think LG has already gained that reputation amongst cinematographers that want to have a larger TV-sized 65-inch, 55-inch, a larger scale image that they know is not adding things and changing what they intended, that they can absolutely trust it to deliver what it needs to be. And that is a very difficult thing to do with a consumer product. So there's already a very positive, very strong feeling towards products like the LG C series.
Thriller movie.
Well, especially when it comes to a thriller movie, a lot of times the visual design, and we shot a noir thriller, so we wanted to go live in the shadows. Consumer TVs generally do not show shadows very well. So we need to make sure that if we're living in the shadows a lot, that we can evaluate it and make sure that it's not losing information or it doesn't look bad in the shadows. So having a TV like this helped us to evaluate that, because it would help to evaluate that, because you can gauge, you can determine your storytelling of what you can see. And if you went too far in pushing too many things too dark in the shadows, because if people can't see it, then there's no point in being able to understand what's going on. Yeah, streaming, obviously if you can get 4K, that makes a very big difference. Even if you can't see the 4K itself, what it does is it removes a lot of artifacts that are not mistakes, noise and things that should not belong in the image. 4K helps to get rid of that. So even if you can't see the extra detail, it helps with that. But otherwise, a good sound system is important, but I prefer HDR setups and HDR masters, and which I have. I brought my Blu-ray player that can do 4K HDR, because Blu-ray in general still has a higher amount of data, so I can appreciate movies I really care about a lot more, the way that I would read a book. So it was a tough choice. I have so many other favorites. So the film print has a huge amount of contrast and depth to the shadows and the highlights. And for the first time, I started seeing that with HDR. And so HDR really helps bring that out. And it's not adding to the image; it's presenting it at home for the first time, as you would have seen it at archival movie theater. So that's, I think, a huge, huge deal because otherwise you would not have access to this experience as a movie enthusiast. So we're moving forward one decade, and this is one of my favorite movies. It's just a fun movie. I think it's hard for people to think of the past because there's so many things going on now. But this is 1950s. This is a Technicolor movie, so you don't have to suffer through black and white if you don't like it. The colors, the way that they designed Technicolor, it's just such a fantastic visual experience. And the songs are so catchy. I mean, they get stuck in your head. So, yeah. This is a 1980s animated feature film, and the reason why I wanted to show this, especially with LG, is that it was remastered, rescanned in the original elements, the animation elements that with HDR. VHS, or even if you saw it in a movie theater, you may not fully capture it. But first of all, this planet-sized robot, when it comes in, you can even see the bright lights and all these colors are now fully realized. You can actually really see all this extra detail, and it really just gives you this. It brings you immediately into the world and feel what's happening much more in your gut. I'm bringing up Dune because there were extra things they did with making this movie on a technical level that adds to the image. This is a night desert battle. But another thing that they did was a film process. So they shot with digital cameras, but they recorded it onto film, and then they scanned that film back in. So throughout the whole movie, there was just a lot of little nuances in the image. There's a milkiness to it. It feels like a painting.
Post-production.
Yeah, I think number one is filmmaker mode is important to use. Filmmaker mode it was an initiative created by filmmakers in post-production here in Los Angeles. And the American Society of Cinematographers, as well as some other groups. So any TV that actually cares about watching movies and helping people watch movies, they will calibrate and set up the TV at the factory correctly so that when you turn on filmmaker mode, it turns off all the things that interfere with watching the movie the way it was meant. And it sets up all the other settings like brightness, contrast, as best as it can, as it should. So anyone doing work in post-production and they want to see and use this as a tool to check or do any other function, they need to make sure they at least go to filmmaker mode because it makes it a lot more simple to do that. I think number one, perseverance is very hard. People give up because this job is very hard. This life, this the filmmaking business is very difficult. It is very tiring. So perseverance, the stubbornness to not give up. To really believe in it, even if everything is very difficult, is number one. I think that is one of the most important things to remember, that everybody has a hard time with it. Understanding that everybody else has a hard time makes it at least better for you. You're not alone in the difficulty. And so we can all persevere together. So that's number one. And then number two, I think kindness is actually difficult because people can be very self-centered or selfish. And when I moved here to Los Angeles, I encountered a lot of selfishness because people just want to further their own careers. They want to get ahead. But one thing I found, because I was lucky to meet some people that have been in the business for a very long time. They made the movies that I grew up watching, the TV shows that I grew up watching. And one common thing I noticed with a lot of them was that they were very kind. They were not selfish. They actually were wonderful people to know. And they have survived in the business for a long time for having integrity. And so that, I think, was a revelation to me because I experienced so much negative things when I first came. And I found that you don't have to do that yourself to be a successful filmmaker. You can be kind, and it actually helps you in the long run. So, and then I would say the third thing, so it was perseverance, kindness, and then curiosity. I think the biggest thing with filmmaking is that when you do it for a long time, it becomes very easy to think you know everything. And I've already heard this, but I think what has really helped filmmakers constantly evolve and to keep developing as filmmakers and have long careers is that they're always curious and trying something new. Not just with film, but just in life. I want to try something new, and that makes you a better filmmaker because you need to have that trait when you're making a movie, is curiosity at all times. So it's very hard. It's actually very hard to be curious when you make a movie. Yeah. Well, thanks for watching and listening to me drone on. I hope you enjoy, be able to watch these movies and see, hopefully, things that you have not heard of or seen, and watch them and get interested in the filmmaking history. It really does enrich our lives, and I think it's a wonderful thing.